The gang rape of a young woman in Delhi in a moving bus has become a trigger point for anger not just in the national capital but across India.
The Supreme Court ruling has criminalized homosexuality, setting aside the Delhi High Court order on Section 377, instead putting the onus on our parliamentarians.
Just switch off the TV, it's too irritating.
There's nothing to watch. All of it's like a social commentary.
Rapes, murders, honor killings, that's it.
It's just too negative. All negative stories. Everywhere.
Stories. We always love listening to stories. We love being part of people's stories. The earliest memories of our childhood come from stories we have been told. The most beautiful stories are usually fairy tales retold over and over again. But sometimes we just hear the stories the way we want to, remember the parts we choose to remember. We retell the stories with changes until they are no more. Sometimes the most bold and truthful stories are never told.
I was born and brought up in a conservative Sikh family in Delhi. Being the younger sibling, I was always the pampered and the loved kid in the family. I have always been a very outgoing and extrovert kind of a person. A few years ago, there was something very fundamental about me that my parents got to know. I was just 16 then. I didn't expect their reaction to be the way it was. I don't think they are ever going to accept me fully for who I am. I just always knew, like throughout school, there was always this attraction towards boys more than girls. There was actually never an attraction towards girls. By the time I was 16, I think, by 16, 17, I was absolutely sure of it. And yeah, that's when I made the decision to come out to my parents. I came out to my sister I couldn't even say it to her, so I actually wrote it down on like a piece of paper, like a long letter, and asking for her acceptance and for her to understand. And I slipped it down her door at night, and she just sent me a text saying she was happy that at least I told her about it. So slowly and gradually, I think my parents also had a clue, because I was meeting men who were older than I was, and I was talking about other people who were not from school. So they somehow could guess, and they somehow did have an idea. And I think that my sister also went and told them, which for me in a way was both good and bad, because I at that point of time didn't have the courage to directly go and tell them. So all of these incidents came together and the whole thing happened. Like, they knew about it now. They didn't react. They didn't know how to react. They don't come from a very liberal background, and for them to not react in an extreme way was actually something that I was very happy about. So they tried talking to me, but they couldn't. They wanted to get to a certain point where that conversation goes in that direction, and I was very patient, and so were they, but they didn't know how to strike that conversation. So that conversation technically never happened. And they just kept saying things like, that is wrong, or this shouldn't be happening. And I think one fine day they just decided to take me to a psychiatrist. I was very happy that I'm going to the psychiatrist to sort it out. And I think the first question that the psychiatrist asked me was, why do you think you're here? And I told him that I think my parents think that I'm angry and I have anger issues and there's something wrong with me. That there's something happening in my personal life which I'm not telling them about. So that's why that's what I told him. But eventually I told him that I know what the real reason is, and he agreed to the same. And we decided not to tell my parents that I know why I'm there, and to not have that conversation with them, because they took me to that guy with a lot of hope. They wanted to fix it. but it can't be fixed, basically. So yeah, and I found myself sitting in his room once a week, once in 2 weeks initially, and for a good, I think the whole thing went on for about a year, but then the frequency fizzled out after a bit. After the whole session happened, he tried talking to me. He wanted to be sure that it was just not hormones talking or some shit like that. And after assessing the whole thing and doing the whole thing for 3 months, he kind of understood that it's basically there. Like, it's not situational, or it's not something that's going to go after a point of time. And when he tried talking to my parents about it, he said that they're never going to understand. I didn't know what to say, but I mean, he knew more than obviously I did. And if he can't convince them, then I definitely can't convince them. So
I was born and brought up in a traditional Kumaoni family in Nainital, and I moved to Delhi 14 years ago for my graduation. I was a very fun-loving, voracious and a friendly kind of a person, and right from my childhood I was very independent because that is how my parents brought me up. But then suddenly something happened at the personal family front that made me halt. I couldn't believe that something like this could happen with me. I couldn't believe that my very strong parents didn't support me. It was a Saturday, so my cousin brother, my sister and me, we decided to go for this very nice film. And my aunt was traveling, and we had the house all by ourselves. So, after dinner, we started talking, and my cousin, she dozed off, she slept, and obviously we both had decided to sleep in the same room because there were 2 bedrooms. It was a 2 BHK, but then she slept on the sofa in the drawing room, and finally, even I was drowsy, and I said I want to sleep. So I went inside, and I just changed and I slept. And after like half an hour, something happened, and this fellow was, my brother. He came and he lied next to me, and in no time was he all over me and he tried to do things that was not appropriate. And probably my cousin, I had never dreamt that my cousin would do such a thing, and and I couldn't even shout because he actually kept his hand really tight on my lips, and I couldn't speak a word. And but then I know I could gather all that strength from somewhere, and I just pushed him. So far, and and I just said, stop. That was something that I told him to do. And he just got off the bed and he left the room. And the next morning I just picked my bag and I left, and I went back to my hostel. I kept crying, and it was just one incident, but then I had never been with a man before, and the first time someone touched me was in such a dirty, in such a pervert way that, I mean, it had such an adverse effect on my entire life, for that momentary phase in my life, my college life. Like, I just could not believe in any other person. Now, this cousin, my cousin sister, eventually one day she called me up and she asked me, you've stopped frequenting their house. And I was like, I have a reason. And I then told her that particular night, the entire incident, I narrated the whole story, and she was shocked. They created a hype about it, that I used to be with boys and I used to act with boys, and I was totally devoting all my time to theatre. And that was not true. That was really, really not true. But then, my parents were outsiders. And being the elder daughter with so much trust, they had sent me to Delhi that, even I was always, whatever step I took in Delhi was to protect that trust they had in me. I did not sleep the entire night. 6 a.m. when the PCO opened, I went down, I called my father and I said, I do not want them to be my guardian anymore. And I told my mother, and she was shocked. And she said, you did not tell me then, so now we cannot do anything about it. I was like, you don't have to do anything. You just have to stop listening to them, because whatever they say, whatever they will say, they will plant stories about me because they have to prove their son right. And this is what they have been doing. Though I'm very, very close to my father, but then because it was his sister, I actually stopped talking about it. And I decided never to confront my father and tell him all these things. And I wanted my mother to be the, mediator. And my mother refused. Till date. And the only excuse she gave me was, you should understand that it's going to risk the entire family and all the relations. And who's going to believe you now? One fine day, my father, over the phone, he started reminding me of whatever had happened. And I completely lost trust in everything. And I told him, for the first time, I shouted at him and I told him that, this is what has happened in my life, whether you believe it or you don't believe it. But, I never got an, assurance-based call from my father, and neither did I get any call from my mother. All I was asked to do was to shut up.
I don't want to hide my identity because I don't think I have anything to hide it for. I'm completely okay with revealing my face. I haven't done anything wrong, so I really don't care what anyone would perceive about me if they know who I am and what my story is.
I really do not want to hide my identity. I don't want to be a victim forever. I don't care if my face is revealed and my story goes out to the people. Because the most unfortunate part is that a victim remains a victim forever if the victim doesn't have the strength to come out in open. I was about to get married in January 2011, and in October 2010, I got a random call. My today's husband and then fiance Bhupat, and he was right there. He said, "What happened?" And then I told him, and he already knew about it because we were college buddies. We both sat down, we talked about it, and he said, he's a part of your life, and this particular incident will not go until you let it go. He was also, and in college when I told him, he was more angry. He wanted to kill him, and he did not want me to meet him ever. But then now, just before our marriage, Bhupat was so mature that he asked me to calm down.
Initially, when I had come out and the whole thing was happening at home, so I felt that my parents and my sister have distanced themselves a bit from me. So I kind of felt lonely for that period of time in my own house. But I think that feeling just went away eventually when I decided to be very neutral about it. Parents' approval is, of course, important. But I know for a fact that I'm never going to get it. No matter what I do. Even if I become, say, the richest guy in the world, it's not going to happen. So I've kind of come to terms with it. I think they just wanted to see me safe, disease-free, and successful in life. And I'm working on that. I'm 24 and I kind of like moving towards a direction where I can make something out of my life.
I am not saying that they have not supported me, but then, the stigma of becoming a social outcast, and with me becoming one, there were, more chances of them becoming the scapegoat in the entire case. And probably to protect that, maybe, they asked me to keep quiet. So apparently when we talk about all these, feminists around, and we talk about all these anti-rape, activists, and I feel so shallow that something that happens in our families are not even talked about. They won't even come and tell you that, fine, we will think about it. There is no thought given to it. It's a complete locking the window and throwing the key somewhere. And that's deliberate.
So when the whole 377 thing happened, I somehow felt that it is going to affect me and my day-to-day activities, because I think it gives other people a reason to attack the gay or the lesbian or the transgender community in some way or the other. But eventually I realized that I'm surrounded by such people that I don't really need to care about it, because I came out on Facebook after that. Everyone was very supportive. People from my flight school who I never thought would be friends with me came out to me, sent me texts saying that they're very proud of what I've done and they stand by me.
After talking to you, when I came home and I actually gave a thought to it, I realized that, if I dare to speak and if I dare to come before the camera and talk about it without my face being blurred, because that is what you suggested then. And, I wanted people to know who is talking what so that they can relate to it. And then, I want everybody to know that the parents, you are the biggest support to any child, no matter what age the child is in. Maybe, your child is married today, but then for you, the person will always remain a child. So hear the story out.
There are a lot of people out there who have not gained that sort of acceptance from society and moreover from themselves. They're not comfortable in their own skin, which I think is very important, because till the time you don't come to terms with it, people around you will not respect you for who you are. So I think this is just my contribution to some of those people who are not lucky enough to have parents who will discuss something like this with them, or take them to a psychiatrist or to professional help, and just basically help them deal with it, because some people don't even have the courage to tell their parents.
What if your parents see this film?
I want them to see this film. It's not about what did they see. I will make them see this film. Not to make them feel more guilty. I know they are guilty somewhere down the line. Because, after I told my mother, she wrote a letter to me saying that how she trusted me and what I mean to her. And I know they love me and I love them back more than I loved them then, or, with each passing day. But then I really want them to watch it.
I don't think that my parents will see this film because I don't know. I don't think there'll be much of a reaction. They'll just ignore this.
It doesn't matter if something happened to you at birth or later in life, the way society reacts is the same. Just because it is not mainstream, it labels you as an outcast, an outsider, a victim with a story that must not be shared. And that is exactly when the story ought to be told. These were stories that I wasn't aware of until I started looking for them. And they were all within my circle of friends. If I could find so many people, imagine the number of people we sit with every day without the faintest idea of what they have been through, without knowing which joke silently hurts them, even when they smile back.
Mom, Dad, if you're seeing this, then you already know all of this and you've been with me throughout. I don't know if this is going to change things, but I'm happy the way it is. You don't have to adapt or change anything, and you don't have to come to terms with it if you don't want to. I'm safe and I'm happy, and I'm just going to be successful in life and make you proud, if not in this way, if not by getting married to a really pretty girl, but I might do other things which might make you happier.
Okay, Ma Baba, I really love you, and I respect you for you have raised me the way I am today. And all I want to say is that I'm sorry for maybe not being empathetic towards your social needs, but then I also want to tell you that I know that you will accept whatever I have shared today, because it's equally important, and my love for you will grow stronger if you watch it and you understand.